Cache, buenas tardes. Hi, everyone. My name is Amy Lloyd, and in my role as the Assistant Secretary for the Office of Career, Technical, and Adult Education, it is my pleasure to welcome you here today and thank you for participating in OCTAE's Office of Correctional Education Pipeline to Pell webinar series. Today's session is exciting. We are going to be learning about leveraging environmental apprenticeship and pre-apprenticeship pathways for individuals who are incarcerated and formerly incarcerated. And as you know, we at the U.S. Department of Education believe in high quality, excellent, equitable education that unites people around student success, grows our economy, empowers people everywhere to realize their dreams. And we recognize that many people who are justice involved never had access to the cornerstones of equity and excellence, which are a comprehensive, rigorous education, strong conditions for learning, and career and college pathways to global engagement. So we're a nation that believes in second chances and in providing meaningful opportunities for rehabilitation, redemption, learning, and growth. And that's why I love our work in correctional education. We know providing education in prison reduces recidivism rates and is associated with higher employment rates, improving public safety, helping people come home to our communities and be able to take care of their families and engage in our society. We also know that for every dollar invested in correctional education programs, $4 to $5 are saved on 3-year reincarceration costs. But perhaps more importantly, strong correctional education improves dignity and provides purpose and instills confidence and builds bright futures that are not limited by mistakes of the past. And that's why we develop resources for the field, including offering virtual learning opportunities like this webinar series. So if you haven't participated in one of our other webinars in the series, we are advancing state and local implementation of inclusive, supportive, comprehensive, high-quality correctional education programs that are designed to meet diverse needs of students. And our wonderful correctional education team here at the department, especially Sean, Shireen, Greg, we are all committed to providing you with the information, the resources, noteworthy practices in correctional education. And today's session is definitely noteworthy. So when we think about the economic opportunities created by the president's Investing in America agenda and high growth, high wage fields such as clean energy, green jobs, we think about a need for a talented workforce. And when we think about the gold standard for work-based learning and workforce training, we often think about high quality pre-apprenticeship and registered apprenticeship programs. And when we think about the future vitality of our people and our planet, we think about how critical the environmental sector is to building our resilience and facing climate change. So I am so thrilled to feature the exciting work from the Roots of Success program and the staff working in East Oregon Correctional Institution and Peralta Services Corporation. Roots of Success's environmental literacy and job training program is the very first federally recognized by the U.S. Department of Labor environmental literacy instructor apprenticeship program in the whole nation. And this empowering program is really dynamic. It prepares young people and adults alike who have barriers to employment to be able to access jobs and career pathways in critical environmental fields and to help us all improve our environmental and social conditions. So huge thank you to the 4 fantastic folks, Raquel, Raymond, Patrick, Cesar, all experts, leaders, innovators in this important work. Thanks so much for joining us today to share your experience, and thank you for your time and all that you do. I am now happy to pass the mic over to Raquel Pinder-Hughes, who is a professor at San Francisco State University and the founder and the executive director of the Roots of Success program to kick us off. Gracias, Alacua. Thank you, everyone. Over to you, Raquel.
Thank you. What a beautiful introduction. I am very, very honored on behalf of the team to be starting our presentation. There are 4 of us here today. As you see, Raymond Peters, who's the program coordinator, DOC staff at Eastern Oregon Correctional Institution, and with him, Patrick Gaisley Romney, who is a very experienced Roots of Success instructor and master trainer, and by himself underneath Cesar Ramon Garcia, who is a Roots of Success instructor and actually going through our apprenticeship program. I'm going to ask Shireen for the next slide. So as Amy talked about, Roots of Success is an empowering environmental literacy and job training program that prepares youth and adults who have been failed by the education system and many other systems to access jobs and career pathways in environmental fields, and as importantly, to improve social and environmental conditions in their communities. And the program is centered around a federally Department of Labor registered apprenticeship and pre-apprenticeship program and a 10-module course. Next slide. The program is offered nationally for both youth and adults in all states and in other countries as well. And it's offered in multiple settings. We have prisons, jails, juvenile detention centers, reentry programs and job training programs, high schools, youth programs like a conservation corps or a youth build, adult schools, and many other education and workforce settings. We even have Roots of Success offered in some centers for the unhoused. Since 2009, which is about 15 years, we've partnered with over 600 programs and agencies. We've worked in now over 40 states, and more than 26,000 youth and adults have gone through our program. At this point, 13,000 took the course while incarcerated, many of them under the direction of Patrick. Next slide. So in order to meet the needs of students who are taking our course in these varied, diverse centers and settings and also circumstances, we've developed customized versions of the course. And each one of these customized versions is unique to itself because we want the students that are in that course to see themselves in the content. So there are versions for incarcerated adults, versions for incarcerated youth, versions for adults in community settings, including a version for low-income social entrepreneurs. There are several versions for youth in school, a version for youth out of school. There's a version uniquely in Spanish where all of the videos and content come exclusively from Spanish-speaking countries. And there are several other customized versions, including for cities and countries. And you can see the different versions are indicated by the different color logos. That's the image that you see on the screen. Roots of Success is usually taught in a classroom setting, but there is an online version. But the online version is not articulated to the pre-apprenticeship credential. The pre-apprenticeship credential is only offered face-to-face in a classroom setting. During COVID, we were able to do that during Zoom, but that's sort of equivalent to face-to-face. You can see the 10 modules on the other side of the screen. I'll go over those later, but basically we are preparing people for jobs and career pathways in the water, waste, transportation, energy, building, health, food, agriculture, open space, ecological restoration fields. And we also have a very empowering model on civic engagement and leadership, and another module on financial literacy and social entrepreneurship. Next slide. Very importantly, as I said before, Roots of Success is a curriculum, a course, a pre-apprenticeship program that can be offered to any participant, any student, independent of their educational level. There are many students in college who take our courses, students who are incarcerated, who have gone through college, and some even have higher degrees. But we are fundamentally interested in supporting the needs of the most disadvantaged. And so on average, many of our students have 4th grade math, 7th grade reading. And for this reason, we have a very strong emphasis on foundational academic literacy. As you can see on the bottom of the slide, we are strengthening math, reading, writing, note-taking, scientific inquiry, research, critical thinking, problem solving, communication, test taking, interpreting tables, charts, and graphs, working with data, verifying information. We also have, obviously, a very strong focus on environmental literacy, which I'll talk about in a minute. We believe that it's very important to help people to manage their assets well now, short and long term. We have a module on financial literacy, and everyone graduates from our social entrepreneurship module with a plan to start their own small green business. And many of our folks do, in fact, come out and start their own green businesses. We also have a very heavy emphasis on personal and community advocacy, and of course, from a professional perspective, on professional vocabulary and job readiness. Everyone leaves the program with a resume, a cover letter, and going through a series of mock interviews, as well as a whole series of additional professional development activities. Next slide. So in terms of our focus on environmental literacy, first of all, very importantly, we define the environment as the environmental justice movement does, as where we live, work, play, and pray. And this is an important distinction from many other environmental education programs or job training programs, which define the environment as the natural environment. So we have a much broader definition of the environment, and this allows every student to come into the room and immediately feel that they can relate to this concept of the environment. It's our everyday lives, it's wherever we are. Our program helps students to deeply understand the root causes of environmental problems and injustices, and the approaches, as well as the technologies, that we would use to address these problems and injustices. And the basic idea here is that students learn about the problems, they learn about the solutions, and then they learn about the jobs that come into place as you put the solutions into place. So we prepare participants for jobs and careers in energy and infrastructure sectors. And you heard me talk about those sectors in the previous slide. And then, as importantly, we provide graduates with a industry-recognized pre-apprenticeship credential of environmental specialist. I'm going to talk about the jobs that our students are prepared to access, or some of them, a little bit later. Next slide. So how do our instructors prepare people for these jobs? Well, one of the ways that they do that, in addition to the curriculum content, is that every instructor receives a 2-volume Green Jobs and Career Pathway Guidebook, in which we describe in great detail, using the Bureau of Labor Statistics data, every single job for which we prepare people. And we prepare people currently for 70 jobs and 111 career pathways in environmental fields. So just to give you a sample of the kinds of jobs that we're preparing people for, this is in alphabetical order: arborist, energy auditor, EV charging station operator or mechanic, environmental educator or advocate, HVAC specialist, horticulture, nursery in care, sales, customer service, solar installation, again, also sales and customer service. You can see we're preparing people for both manual labor jobs and non-manual labor jobs, what we would normally call blue and white collar jobs. Stormwater technicians, tree planting care and maintenance, transit operator, station manager, utility meter reader, water and wastewater treatment plant operator. And I wanted to mention that as we speak, Cesar and I are working to get some of the graduates from his program to apply for the utility meter reader job in our local water utility district. This is a position which requires only a high school degree, a test, a simple test that we believe most of our graduates will be able to pass, and a clean driving record and California driver's license. This is the job that starts at $90,000 with full benefits and pension, and within 3 years goes up to $130,000. So these are the kinds of living wage, dignified, meaningful jobs that our graduates are prepared to apply for. Can I have the next slide? So Director Lloyd did speak about why we should prepare youth and adults, the opportunities that are available for preparing youth and adults for green jobs, but I just want to give you some statistics. This is a huge window of opportunity. The climate investment alone will exceed $2.5 million. We already see, huge numbers of workers, 8 million workers in the renewable energy sector alone. Since 2019, we see on the slide a 50% increase in the number of jobs in environmental sectors. Millions of new workers will be needed in the years to come. The EV charging sort of sector, EV vehicle sector alone is hugely growing, as is the tree planting sector and tree maintenance sector. We have these occupations projected to grow faster than the national average. But I think, as importantly, most green jobs improve environmental and public health. And most green jobs provide workers with lower levels of education, with higher wages, better benefits, and greater opportunities for occupational mobility than jobs in retail and service sectors. And a lot of my academic research has been in this area. I did a study with employers in 22 sectors of the green economy, and we clearly see these advantages compared to retail and service sector jobs, which is where many people with lower levels of education find themselves. And then finally, from a justice perspective, we believe that hiring and training people from frontline communities, the communities most impacted by environmental problems and injustices, is an important social justice action that we must ensure that those people who have borne the disproportionate burden of environmental hazards and problems have opportunities to benefit from the solutions as they're put into place. Next slide. So just a word on our pedagogical approach. We have an approach that is designed to immediately engage students who have not done well in school, for whom school has not been a place that they see as where they are successful, or for whom school has not been a place which has been welcoming to them. And so we build, using this definition of the environment as where we live, work, play, and pray, on students' lived experiences, which again, as I said, gives every student the message: you have everything you need to be successful in this class. You have everything you need to participate in this class, and we are interested and deeply involved in understanding sort of where you come from and using that as the foundation upon which to build further knowledge. We center the experiences of individuals from underserved communities throughout our curriculum, independent of the versions. That means that in the multimedia content, we have experts who come from the communities that our students come from, not exclusively communities of more privileged or educated individuals. It's a multimedia activity-based curriculum. My colleagues will talk about this, but students work in small groups, learning together and from each other. And we always connect what students are learning in the classroom, not only to their everyday lives, but to education and employment opportunities. Every single module ends with a deep discussion of the jobs and career opportunities in that field. Next slide. So I'm winding down here. Just talk very briefly about the pre-apprenticeship program. The pre-apprenticeship program, which is the program that both Patrick and Cesar teach, is offered to students through the taking of the 10-module course. As I said, it deepens students' understanding of environmental problems and solutions, introduces them to jobs and careers in environmental fields, gives them the vocabulary they need to interview with employers and to work in these fields. As importantly, it inspires them to want to work in environmental and STEM fields. And it provides them with the credential, and then it's a bridge to these jobs, and it's usually offered in 10 to 12 weeks. The next slide speaks about the apprenticeship program. As Director Lloyd said, this is the first and only federally recognized DOL CTE environmental literacy instructor apprenticeship. And Cesar is going to talk a little bit about this in his presentation. This is offered to every new instructor who teaches the course. Patrick has already completed his apprenticeship. This is a 2,156-hour apprenticeship. The on-the-job training is gained through teaching Roots of Success multiple times, as well as other environmental courses that somebody else might be teaching at the time. The RSI, which is the related supplemental instruction, is embedded throughout. The mentorship is embedded throughout. And apprentices, after usually 1 or 2 years, receive a CTE environmental literacy instructor credential. They are being trained to be educators who are able to prepare their students for jobs in the green economy. And when our program is offered in prison, the incarcerated instructors go through the apprenticeship and earn this Department of Labor credential. And my final slide just speaks to, oh, sorry, 2 more slides. So this is just a quick slide talking about impact. You can see the numbers on the slide, but basically a study of 6,000 graduates showed that, huge numbers of our graduates have a better understanding of environmental problems and solutions when they finish our course. They're more knowledgeable about jobs and career pathways. They are eager to share what they learn with others, which we see as a very important impact. They have increased their professional vocabulary. They are on fire to be involved in the community. They are more comfortable working in teams, and they feel that their academic skills have improved. And we get about 70 to 80% increases on the CAS and TABE tests, which is a very high number. And a smaller study more recently on the labor market side of 1,200 graduates showed that they felt more prepared for interviews, and very importantly, that 75% found employment in 3 months, and 70% within 6 months later were still employed. And we just asked all of our current programs to give us the data on where their graduates are employed. And I would say 70 to 80% are employed in what we would call sort of environmental fields. So we're not only employing people for the labor market, but specifically for these green jobs. That's being shown with the statistics. And then the final slide is on our work in prisons. Well, maybe we'll go to the next slide. I don't want to take too much time. So the final slide is on our work in prisons, which is really quite unique. I believe we are the only apprenticeship program, the only pre-apprenticeship program, and the only academic program that is taught by incarcerated instructors who are paid or compensated to teach our course to their peers, usually with no DOC staff or guards in the classroom. This model is very powerful. I believe it is the most powerful model that I've ever seen. And as importantly, as Ray will talk about, the program structure requires DOC staff to work with incarcerated instructors in a very collaborative way, which fosters a much more positive dynamic inside of prisons. And finally, one of the things that we didn't predict when we started the program, but which has been proven to be the case every single year, is that because our students and our graduates are on fire to put what they're learning in the classroom into practice, we are saving prison facilities millions of dollars a year because our graduates are reducing their water waste and energy use in the prison. They are starting composting programs. They are starting many other kinds of programs. And as a result, we are saving prisons huge amounts of money in these areas. So you see, these figures are from the Ohio prison system, $90,000 reduction in trash bills in multiple facilities, 60% decrease in electrical usage over 3 years in 9 facilities, 12,000 pound reduction in food waste. Ohio, one of the facilities just told me they're saving $40,000 in their garbage bill because they have completely reduced food, taken food waste out of the solid waste stream. The slide previously just spoke very briefly about how to offer routes of success, but I think that will probably come up in the questions and answers. But in terms of the implementation, basically you get in touch with us. We arrange to have staff, or if it's a facility, incarcerated individuals go through a 1 to 2 day training where they are introduced to our pedagogical approach and our teaching materials. They're enrolled in our apprenticeship program. When you're ready to teach the program, you order student workbooks. Then those students are enrolled in our pre-apprenticeship program. The course is then taught. There are course completion documents which provide us with all of the internal evaluation data that we need. And then there's a post-tracking data process which allows us to track students after they graduate. So thank you so much for your time. I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, Raymond Peters, Program Coordinator at EOCI.
Good afternoon. Thank you all for sharing your time with us today. My name is Ray Peters. I'm the Institution Work Programs Coordinator here at EOCI. My position is within the Correctional Rehabilitation Department. Our focus is on motivating and providing incarcerated people the opportunity to make changes that bring them back to the community as better neighbors. Approximately 96% of those that are incarcerated here will be returning to our communities, and our job is to help them be better equipped for success than when they arrived in our custody. I've worked in the Oregon Department of Corrections for about 27 years. I have a broad background encompassing security and rehabilitative positions, and currently I'm work to develop and administrate programs to provide work training opportunities. A little background, we're a medium custody facility housing approximately 1,300 adults. Our population and administration both agree that programs are a good thing. But as with prisons everywhere, we struggle with logistics and staffing levels and budget. Roots of Success was brought to my attention in 2018, and I reached out to Dr. Pinder Hughes. With her guidance and assistance, we were able to deliver the course to our first group of students shortly thereafter. The first thing that really struck me was the peer-led aspect of the model. Dr. Pinder Hughes trained several incarcerated people here as facilitators, which reduced the demands on staff time and allowed me to schedule multiple cohorts of students without having to physically deliver the curriculum myself. There was very little cost to the facility, and our management team was completely supportive. Since 2018, we've had 18 cohorts of more than 150 students engaged in the Roots of Success curriculum. It's designed in a way that allows flexibility in scheduling, with each module deliverable as a standalone curriculum. This is an important factor for us. Scheduling is often impacted by the administrative processes that are beyond our control. One of the primary advantages of delivering Roots of Success at EOCI has been the social dynamic between the incarcerated and staff members. Typically, that's a relationship with a lot of negative connotation, an us-them mentality that creates a negative work environment for the staff and hinders rehabilitation opportunities for the incarcerated. In addition to my work with vocational programs, I'm also part of a team that's working to change prison culture. Many states are recognizing a health crisis among everyone in prison, whether incarcerated or working. Job satisfaction is low, health deficits are common. In an attempt to alleviate those issues, there's activists and government agencies are coming together to take a hard look at conditions within the prisons and try to make a more positive and rehabilitative environment that results in better outcomes for the currently incarcerated and higher job satisfaction among the staff. Roots of Success creates a venue for staff members to engage with incarcerated people in a positive, collaborative setting and increases job satisfaction for workers. Because Roots of Success focuses on larger issues outside the prison dynamic, staff and incarcerated people are able to establish common ground and develop goals that can be worked toward together. As an example, we're a government agency. We're always looking for ways to reduce our carbon footprint, be more environmentally responsible. And several years ago, we engaged in a water use reduction campaign in cooperation with prisons from other states. The population here at the prison basically ignored our efforts and had no interest in participating. Since the introduction of Roots of Success, we've seen a decrease in water use. More than half the participants in class report that they've reduced water and electricity use after taking the class. In addition, the majority also report a willingness to encourage others to save resources as well. So we're changing the culture within the prison. A more personal example would be my relationship with the instructors. Instead of having directive conversations that emphasize that power disparity, we now meet as colleagues to discuss classroom schedule management, activity planning, developing presentations for outside groups. I've supported opportunities for facilitators to present in virtual settings, such as today, as well as make presentations to local community leaders. The ability for me as a long-term prison employee to witness and facilitate personal growth and achievement in the people I work with has become very important to my occupational health. As facilitators place themselves in front of a group, they develop their public speaking and class management skill set. This opportunity to engage in a meaningful work experience is rare in the prison setting. It's allowed the facilitators to not only grow, but identify valuable characteristics that they didn't know they had. The ability that I've found to positively impact the prison population is not restricted only to the facilitators. Many of our students who access the Roots of Success program struggle with learning. Most have limited education histories and have not considered education something really accessible to them. When interviewing new people that arrive here at the prison, they're almost always interested in education opportunities, but they lack confidence in their ability to successfully navigate post-secondary education. Students are encouraged to view the Roots of Success coursework as college-level education. In fact, it continues to, as the organization continues to develop relationships with various partners, college credit for attendance may be available to our students in the future. Students who have previously considered further education beyond their ability are empowered to seek future opportunities. The pre-apprenticeship component of the program is a valued and important part for all the students who see the certification as proof of positive behavior and validation of their efforts. Students in class are often challenged in their beliefs regarding environmental issues, which results in healthy discussion and growth. Prior to participating in the Roots of Success curriculum, I find students are most likely to parrot the statement of the loudest voice in the room. After engaging in a few sessions of class, the students begin to discuss environmental issues with a new sense of perspective. They're empowered with information to arrive at their own conclusions rather than relying on popular opinion in the room around them. This development of critical thinking often helps them as they continue their journey through the correctional system. Operationally, Roots of Success is remarkably easy to work with. The peer-led model has allowed us to continue to deliver content through circumstances that have prevented other programs. During the COVID pandemic, as Raquel mentioned, Roots of Success was one of the only programs still available due to the restriction of outside visitors and contractors accessing the prison. The peer-led model has been so successful. In fact, we've used it to develop other programs. Currently at EOCI, we have multiple gardening classes, both for the hobbyist and professional, beekeeping classes, greenhouse management. The peer-led model has created vocational opportunities for the instructors, as well as increased classroom availability for the people who live here. It's a productive and meaningful job, which, as I've already mentioned, it's difficult to find meaningful work here. Development of new facilitators is an ongoing challenge due to the transient nature of our population. While we're able to retain some long-term residents as facilitators, we're also working to develop more opportunities for those who will be re-entering their communities soon as well. By working with Roots of Success Administration and through the efforts and abilities of the facilitators already in place, we now have a master facilitator who can train new facilitators right here in the prison. Those facilitators will then become a resource at other prisons as they move into the lower custody facilities. That master trainer is Patrick Gaisley Romney, who will now be sharing his experiences.
All right, thank you, Ray. Hey, everybody, my name is Patrick Gaisley Romney. I've been incarcerated at EOCI since 2015. I'm originally from Portland, Oregon, where I graduated from Portland State University with a focus on environmental science and sustainability. Environmental issues have always been pretty interesting and important to me. And while incarcerated, I found myself lucky to find meaningful work that considers the environment as well as environmental issues. I was hired by Ray to teach beekeeping through Washington State Beekeeping Association and an extension service horticulture certificate program for Oregon State University in 2018. He wanted to incorporate more environmental programming here at EOCI. So over the past 6 years, we've worked together to create a comprehensive environmental program down here at our workplace. In late 2018, we found a Roots of Success book that had been in storage, which had been shipped over from a neighboring prison. We found that the Roots content fit really well with the other environmental programming that we offer. So we contacted Roots of Success. We got a hold of Raquel to see if we could get it off the ground here. After meeting with Raquel and going through a training, we began our first cohort of students in late 2018. So now I'll tell you about my experience with Roots of Success, pre-apprenticeship and apprenticeship programs. I finished my environmental specialist pre-apprenticeship in early 2019 and began the apprenticeship for career technical educator later that year. Over the next couple of years, I taught many cohorts of students supervised by Raquel and Douglas, and then received the career technical educator apprenticeship for environmental literacy from the U.S. Department of Labor in 2022. Over the course of my tenure as an instructor here at EO, I've delivered the Roots of Success curriculum to approximately 15 cohorts. Next month, I'll actually be training my first class of new instructors here at EOCI, as Raquel recently ordained me as a master trainer for the Roots of Success organization. I'll be leaving this prison by the end of the summer, and it's my hope to get the program going at my next prison before I go home in early 2027. I'm planning on working with Roots of Success when I enter the community in 2027, hopefully training new instructors and running classes in Portland, where I'll also be working as an arborist and pursuing a master's degree in urban forestry. Now I'll talk to you about how Roots actually works at our facility. At EOCI, Roots of Success has several important applications. It inspires in students a passion about environmental issues. It helps engage them in career-connected correctional education programs. It also connects them to other environmental programming offered at the prison, and it provides a bridge to Pell eligible education. So a culture change here at EOCI towards sustainability has happened since Roots of Success took off in 2019, due primarily to the increased educational opportunities focused around environmental issues. Several of our students presented to the sustainability team in 2020, out of which flowed several ideas for green initiatives. Recently, one such idea was adopted here and helped us move away from single-use plastics for collecting dirty mop heads. Also based in our office is the institution Echo newsletter. Highlighting the success of inmate-led initiatives for sustainability has generated an increased interest in environmental programs overall. Currently, most of our class wait lists for Roots of Success, beekeeping, and horticulture are over 100 people strong. Along with generating interest in environmental issues overall, Roots of Success specifically helps students engage with career-connected correctional education programs. At our prison, we have opportunities for inmates to get involved in many types of trade apprenticeships in our physical work plan. Many students who have graduated Roots of Success have gone on to pursue a path to a trade in the physical plant. We have students who are now apprentice plumbers, carpenters, metal fabrication workers, electricians, and HVAC specialists. All of the Roots of Success modules have a section which introduces our students to green jobs and career pathways in related fields. For example, the water module provides a bridge of interest to the work that is done here in the plumbing shop. In the energy module, we encourage students to think about the work that is done by electricians, and we also link them to information about how to join our electrical program, where they offer an LME license and an electrical journeyman program license. And then during our building module, the carpentry, maintenance, and HVAC and paint shops are discussed as possible vocational options for students after they graduate. After graduating Roots of Success, some of our students choose to pursue their newly instilled environmental passion through a horticultural or agricultural pathway. Some of our students apply for either the beekeeping program here or the Master Gardener program. Students who complete the Master Gardener program have opportunities to become greenhouse workers at the prison or grounds maintenance technicians. The pre-apprenticeship gives students invaluable opportunities to sharpen their professional skills in public speaking. We also conduct mock interviews. It gives them a good way to practice interviewing when they get out, and it helps them with their financial literacy, budgeting, things like that, as well as activities like resume writing and cover letters. Many students graduate with more academic confidence than when they started, ready to enter another program of study or interview for a job in a field of interest. Roots of Success at EOCI also serves as a bridge to post-secondary Pell eligible education. So we provide a lived experience of success in an introductory college-style program. While our prison's contract with outside college providers is currently in flux, Coffee Creek Correctional Facility in Wilsonville, Oregon, which is also a site of Roots of Success, is at this time able to move people into a Pell eligible college program through Portland State University. So lastly, I'm going to talk about my experience working with Roots and how it's impacted me personally. So as an incarcerated facilitator, Roots of Success has had a major impact on my development as a leader and educator. Roots of Success has provided me opportunities to sharpen my public speaking, problem solving, and conflict resolution skills. As many of you know, prison culture can be very divisive. Roots of Success has created a safe community space where people from all walks of life, creeds, races, orientations, and gender identities have come together to have discussions about their commonalities instead of their differences. I've witnessed many heated debates in my classes about a whole host of issues related to the environment and socioeconomics. Through this lived experience, I've come to understand how to facilitate clarity amongst communication breakdowns in my class and support an empathy building process between students. I've experienced firsthand how the Roots of Success apprenticeship program develops competent leaders in education. And then over the past 5 years, Raquel and Douglas, my mentors from Roots of Success, have shown me unwavering support. They've been responsive to questions, concerns. They've included me among other voices in designing program materials and thinking about the direction of their organization. Raquel personally has supported me through 2 clemency application processes, writing letters of support and offering her social advocacy, which has been great. She's also invited me to join Roots of Success, the board of directors, when I get out of prison. I've worked with Raquel as a colleague as well. We co-authored a chapter in a book about liberatory spaces in prisons, which is going to be published by Rutgers University Press. And then Raquel has trained me to become a better program facilitator and offered me a job with her organization after my release. All of these actions and an openness to collaboration have really left me with an impression of complete support, and I feel great about continuing my relationship with them in the future. Next up, my colleague Cesar will speak with you about his work with Roots of Success, working with previously incarcerated individuals in a community setting. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Good afternoon. My name is Cesar Ramon Garcia. I was in and out of prison for almost 10 years. And during that time, I had the opportunity to take some college courses. When I got out, I continued with these courses and in community college. And in 2019, I was accepted into UC Berkeley's Underground Scholars Program. I then graduated with a BA in sociology this past Sunday. In 2024, I was hired as a Roots of Success instructor to teach the pre-apprenticeship course to men and women returning from prison and jail. Some as recently as only 2 months before we started the course, in partnership with Correctional Services Corporation, which is part of the Unity Council in Oakland. I want to begin by talking about the challenges of reentry. When we get out, we have to figure out our relationships with probation and parole. We need to find housing. And if we're living in transitional homes, we might have specific obligations such as time constraints and or curfews. We're trying to reunite with family. We rarely have enough resources. We rarely have any resources, money for the bus, to register a car, or even pay for child support. We constantly worry about being sent back to prison at any time. And on top of that, we have difficulty finding employment with the stigma of incarceration. Many of us don't have the skills or work experience and the employment networks to find jobs. So in this context, literacy and job training programs such as Roots of Success are vital. As you've heard, the Roots of Success program is centered around the Department of Labor apprenticeship and pre-apprenticeship program and a 10-module course. I've been teaching the Roots of Success pre-apprenticeship course for about 2.5 months, and we've completed 8 of the 10 modules. Before the course started, some of the students were hesitant to talk or even ask questions. Most of them had very poor reading skills. They all carried a sense of shame from incarceration. They were completely focused on their own lives and challenges. They had no idea how to manage their finances. They knew nothing about jobs in the environmental fields. They were extremely insecure about finding a job. And now, only after 2 months, meeting only 2 times a week, I've seen the positive impact that Roots of Success, the program, has had on each of these students. We are now having serious discussions about social and environmental issues. They're asking a ton of questions and thinking critically and connecting what they are learning in the class to real world issues. They're using vocabulary terms that they learned in class. They're beginning to question why they didn't get this information and what it means in terms of their place in society. They're beginning to think about how things can be changed and how they can be a positive part of these changes. They are very excited about potential job opportunities when they graduate. For most of these students, this will be their first time graduating anything. In terms of employment and professional development specifically, all of these students have increased their confidence and self-esteem, improved their communication skills, increased their professional vocabulary. They're beginning to connect concepts. They're now informed about a wide range of employment opportunities. They know about jobs in multiple sectors of the labor market. They will leave the course with resumes and cover letters, having gone through mock interviews. They will have financial literacy and social entrepreneur skills that will help them throughout every aspect of their lives. They will meet with an employment specialist who will connect them to jobs that they are prepared to access to the Roots of Success Pre-Apprenticeship course. They will be prepared for over 50 jobs and over 100 career paths in energy and infrastructure fields. We are currently working with local utility companies and businesses that are working in these sectors. And very important, these students will have an environmental specialist credential that is highly valued by employers and a bridge to other apprenticeships and educational opportunities. So now I just want to briefly share how I'm benefiting from being part of the Roots of Success apprenticeship program as a new instructor. To start my apprenticeship, I went through a one-day training where I was introduced to the unique teaching approach and materials used in the Roots of Success program. Now that I've started teaching, I meet regularly with Raquel, who's my mentor and apprenticeship in the apprenticeship program. The focus is on developing as a professional educator. I'm learning how to engage and support students in learning, create and maintain effective environments for student learning, understand and organize subject matter, develop curriculum, plan instruction, design learning experiences for diverse students, assess student learning, and much more. There's so much more that I can say, but at this point, I will turn it over to Sean Eddy for the questions and answer session.
Thank you, Cesar, and thank you to everyone from Roots of Success for providing your expertise and sharing your story and your experiences with us and everyone else who's here. There's been a couple questions that have popped up in the chat. So please feel free to add more questions if you have them around specific questions or specific issues or other areas that were raised. So there was one question around evaluations of this initiative. And Raquel, I'm not sure if you are the best person to speak on that, or if someone else would like to speak about it, but I think.
Can take it. Yeah.
Sure.
So yes, there's external and internal evaluations of Roots of Success, and that's a very important place to start. We collect open-ended and closed-ended surveys from every single instructor, both after the training and after the course. And we collect closed-ended and open-ended surveys and a letter from every single student after they graduate from the course. So we are regularly analyzing thousands of pieces of data, looking for patterns, and that's where we get our impact numbers from, the ones that you saw on my slide. But as importantly, there have been several external evaluations of Roots of Success, one most recently done by the Goldman School of Public Policy, particularly on the transformational impact of our work in prisons. And that's available on our website. So yeah, evaluation is very important. We consistently conducting information on our impact of our course, but as importantly, we also track our graduates for 3, 6, 9, and 12 months. We try to track them as far as 24 months, but that's more difficult. And we collect from our community partners data on all of the placements for our graduates, which is also sort of objective data on unemployment. And then inside of the prisons, as Patrick talked about, people are also getting jobs, and we collect that data as well. So several different places in which we are constantly tracking our impact.
A follow-up question for you,
Would be
Raquel.
very
There
welcome.
was a question about how to become a partner with Roots.
Yes, so I tried to talk about that a little bit, but I think the most important thing to say is please just contact us at raquel@rootsofsuccess.org, and I will set up a meeting with you to learn about your program, working with our program staff, our program manager, Douglas Pentland. And as we learn more about your program, we will figure out which customized version makes the most sense. And then eventually we can talk about providing a training. I should say this is a fee-for-service program. There is a fee for the training and for the materials, but it is a sliding scale, and we have never let money get in the way of the mission. So money should never be an impediment to implementing Roots of Success. But please, yeah, just contact me at Raquel at Roots of Success. That would be the easiest way. And the training is all online. It's a 1.5-day training. So you don't have to come to us. You just and if you are in a facility and you need us to come to you in person, then of course we can do that as well. I know the federal prisons that we work with, we do have to come to the facility. We don't have any online access, but most of the state facilities, as well as the jails and detention centers, we can train teachers. We also have our own instructors. Cesar, as you know, is teaching in a community setting in Oakland. We have a teacher in the Department of Children, Wealth, and Families in the detention centers in Washington, and some other teachers in other states as well.
So this is a question I think actually that anyone could answer, because there's going to be kind of different facets to it. And it's how have younger people ages 18 to 21 responded to the program?
Yeah, I can speak to that, at least in the prison setting. We have a lot of young people that do get involved in our program. And typically at the beginning of young people's prison sentences, they can go one way or another. You know, they can pursue a path to a vocational program and do something good with their time, or they can, you know, join a gang and do something a lot more destructive. We have had students that came in kind of teetering on deciding on what they want to do with their prison experience, and have left to actually join one of those physical plant apprenticeship programs that that I discussed before. I have a student right now who, after running through the Roots of Success program, halfway through the program, realized that he had a really big passion for gardening, and he was really interested in getting involved in the greenhouse program, which we also run down here. And I got him in to talk with my boss, and he's now working out in the greenhouse. And he is in a very impressionable stage in his young adult life. So it's definitely had a very big impact on the young people that choose to participate at this facility, for sure.
Yeah, and I'll just add to that Patrick is teaching the version of the curriculum for adults, which works very well for youth who are 16 years and older, who are basically functioning in the world, especially if they come from lower income communities as adults when they graduate from the program. But we also have several customized versions for youth, and most of those are articulated to college credit, which is banked for them when they graduate. It's a very impactful program for young people. All of the research shows that they share the information with family and friends, that they are on fire to get involved in other community-based initiatives, that they become very interested in the careers, that they move on to STEM education. So I think from that perspective, there's a lot of data that we collect that shows that the customized versions for youth in school and out of school are very powerful. We also offer the version to youth in detention centers, very often complemented by a hard skills training program. And that launches people on a career when they leave the facilities.
There's a question here around the program being available, to people who are currently involved in other degree or workforce development programs. So I guess the question is really sort of around what's the time obligation of the program?
Right. So Roots of Success is usually offered in 10 to 12 weeks. Each module typically takes about 6 hours to teach, and then the program has to offer makeup sessions for any students who have missed classes, because to get the pre-apprenticeship credential, you have to attend all classes. So we have many programs that are offering Roots of Success in the morning, and students are involved in some kind of hard skills training in the afternoon. We have high schools that teach Roots of Success as a freestanding course or embed the course inside of a science course. We have students who are incarcerated who are working full-time and then going through the program in the evening or on a Saturday. So I would say that it's very easy to offer Roots of Success simultaneously with other things that people are pursuing, including college classes, which is also happening. It's a short program. It's usually offered 2 or 3 days a week in chunks of 2 and 2 or 3 and 3 hours. And I would say most people are going through Roots of Success while they're also pursuing other educational and job training opportunities or working.
Raymond, I saw you had your hand raised. Were you?
I was going to make several of the points that Raquel made, so I will just let her answer stand.
Okay.
Yeah, no, I think Ray was confirming that many people who are incarcerated are working full-time and taking the class, when they're not working. And that's, sometimes in prisons, we offer the simultaneous versions of the course at different times of the day and week so that people who are working can enroll in the class. And it really becomes the highlight of their day. Ray wants it, yeah.
Sorry, because of the structure and how easy it is to move the classes around, tailor it to our institutional needs. Most of our vocational training opportunities are occurring during normal business hours, but because the facilitators live here, we're able to schedule classes based on availability of students and really tailor it so that we never have to tell anyone no because of scheduling obligations.
And inside of a prison or a jail, there are absolutely no requirements for entry. There are no barriers to entry. It doesn't matter how long your sentence is. It doesn't matter what infractions you might have. It doesn't matter. I mean, the prisons might put up their own barriers, but from our perspective, every single person is welcome. And for people who are serving long sentences for whom a lot of programming is not available, this is a really beautiful opportunity for them.
There's a question here from a colleague at the Department of Labor. How are the materials for training purchased?
The way any other materials would be purchased. So basically you contact us and we figure out how much you can afford to pay for the training and the materials and the registration fee for the pre-apprenticeship. And then you figure out when you want to train your first instructor or instructors, as is usually the case, when you want to purchase your student workbooks in order to start the class on a particular day. Once the class starts, we register students. So I think the answer is they're purchased through an invoice process and a purchasing process that's very similar to anybody else's purchasing process. Maybe I don't understand the question correctly, but.
Okay, yeah, and please do add kind of these additional details, or if something that you're hearing from.
So it's yeah, I'm looking at the chat. It's slightly different for correctional facilities, because for correctional facilities, if you are training large numbers of people at a time, we usually have a contract and a licensing agreement. And many facilities, this is not true in Oregon, but in many facilities, they are printing our materials on site, which just allows them to have a little bit more control over the timing. And then we just have a traditional licensing agreement then. But basically, it's very straightforward. We invoice you based on what you can pay, and then we send you the materials, and then we schedule the training, and it just moves on from there. One very important thing that Ray mentioned, and it's one of the reasons why Patrick is here talking with us today, is that in order to reduce the cost for prisons, because people are staying in for long periods of time and because people are moving, we train individuals serving long and life sentences to be our instructors. And after they've gone through the apprenticeship program, we train them to be master trainers. I don't like that term very much, but that's the term we're using, so that they can train the next generation of Roots of Success instructors without any cost additionally to the facility. And that's what Patrick's going to be doing. As he leaves OECI, he's going to train a new generation of teachers, and then he'll move to a new facility. And then as he gets ready to leave, he'll train another generation of teachers, and that will all be free of charge to the facility.
And there's a question.
There are many women. Yes. Sorry, Sean.
No. That's that you make my job easier if you. There's a question about how do you start a Route to Success program, and I think you answered that somewhat, but someone was curious about the requirements.
Yes.
But I imagine they would email one of these people, the info or Raquel or Cesar, depending on where they're focusing on, and then they would get collated.
Yeah, I think Raquel in this instance would be the best. Info is just going to go to us eventually, but there are requirements for the instructors. The instructors have to be literate. They have to have at least a 9th grade education so that they can read our teaching materials. They have to be people-oriented. They have to be open to using our pedagogical approach, which is quite unique. But other than that, as long as they're willing to go through the training and teach the pre-apprenticeship program as required, and they can read at a relatively high level, there are no other requirements. None of our teachers have previous teaching experience. Most of them know nothing about environmental issues. They've never trained anybody in workforce. They haven't taught financial literacy or civic engagement. They're using our materials and going through our training and learning how to do that through the apprenticeship program. And I did want to just say, if I may, there are many women who have gone through Roots of Success. We offer Roots of Success in many prisons that are, housing women. Patrick mentioned Coffee Creek in Oregon. There are many, many others around the country. And we also have many women who are going through our program in the community, younger and older, youth and adults.
Being cognizant of time, I think we probably have time for one more question if one more question comes in. But I think while we wait for that, would any of the presenters like to have any final comments, final words? Anything else that you'd like to share or add? Cesar.
Yeah, I just wanted to touch on having a job and doing this course in prison. For me, when I was out here, when I got out, it was important for me to be able to juggle those types of things, probation, having a job and going to school. So if I was able to do that in prison, it would be so helpful for me when I would have been out here, right? So I think it's a great thing to do.
There was a question about the difference between the train the trainer and the apprenticeship. They are different. The train the instructor is the training that each instructor goes through in order to start their apprenticeship. I would just like to take the time to thank my colleagues. We don't always get to see Patrick and Ray live, so it's beautiful to see you guys. Thank you so much. And Cesar, just so happy to have you on the team and so excited for the work that you're going to be doing with us.
Thank you.
Yeah, we from the Department of Education, we really appreciate you all sharing your expertise, sharing information about the program. I think it's really nice to see the continuum of the program kind of here in the webinar, from inside incarceration to leaving incarceration. So thank you all very much. We will be, I think we can send out slides to folks, assuming you all are fine with it. And if we can't send them out, you can email Shireen or I, and we can send you a copy of the slides. And I saw there was a hand up, but that may have been an involuntary hand.
Well, I just want to say the staff person to our federal Department of Labor apprenticeship program happens to be on the line, which is really great. Thank you, Abigail. Props to you. And she just said that out of our 83 registered Department of Labor apprentices, 41 are women. So that's our empirical data. Thank you.
Thank you everyone for presenting and attending. We really appreciate it, and we hope everyone has a good Memorial Day weekend. And thank you again for attending our webinar.
Thank you so much. It was an honor.